A very good morning to you. Welcome to AM Live this Wednesday. My name is Olive Burrows, and it is just hours to the much-hyped public rally by the Azimio One Kenya leadership at Nairobi's Kamkunji grounds, and Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has warned against breaking the law during the meeting. As this happened, the tribunal considering the petitions for the removal of 4 IEBC commissioners has announced its pre-trial sittings, notifying all commissioners of their participation. NTV's Ibrahim Karanja has more on whether it's the 2 out of the 4 or will include all 4, 2 of whom have already resigned.
After weeks of a battle of wits between government-affiliated political leaders and their opposition counterparts over the ongoing push to oust 4 IEBC commissioners, the stage is set for action Wednesday. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki, who spent a better part of Tuesday afternoon meeting top security officials, has assured the Azimio hierarchy that the government will provide security.
We are ready to support those who want to protest, to demonstrate, or to air their grievances of whatever nature whatsoever.
Kindiki, however, warned Azimio supporters against breaking the law.
Those who want to test what our resolve is can try to break the law. The same way we have done with the MAGAs of Nairobi. The same way we are ruthlessly pursuing the bandits in the north of our country. The same way we are engaged to ensure that we keep terrorists at bay is the same way we will ruthlessly deal with any Kenyan who wants to use the democratic space of our constitution to interfere with the rights and freedoms of other Kenyans.
Azimio principal Raila Odinga has said that his brigade will not back down from what it believes is its core mandate.
And that the meeting on Wednesday at Kamkunji grounds is a peaceful public consultative meeting. It is not a demonstration or picketing. It is just a consultative meeting with the people of Kenya.
Kama wanataka kufanya every day, ama every week, ama every month, na kwa miaka ngapi, watu waambie wanataka kufanya hiyo maandamano.
The planned public rallies have not only pitted government against the opposition, but has also displayed some cracks within Azimio. The Kenya Union Party, led by former West Pokot Governor Professor John Lonyangapuo, has distanced itself from its Azimio siblings.
Indeed, today, the Azimio coalition represents the greatest threat to democracy, the rule of law and national cohesion in our nation's recent history.
Wednesday's gathering at Kamukunji grounds is aimed at protesting against the push to oust IEBC Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera, Commissioners Irene Masit, Justus Nyang'aya and Francis Wanderi from office. Although Cherera and Nyang'aya have already thrown in the towel and left office, a notice of scheduled status conferences by the tribunal probing their conduct suggests that they will be required to appear before the team.
Effectively, they have resigned. What the tribunal was supposed to establish is whether they are going to be removed or they are going to remain. They have removed themselves. So there would be no recommendation on their removal or non-removal because they've already removed themselves. But procedurally, the law requires that so long as there is a live petition, and in this case the petitioners are yet to withdraw their petition, it means therefore that they have to be given a chance to appear before the tribunal.
Mbuzi atakwenda kesi mbele ya mahakama ya Fisi, atararuriwa. Watu wangu wote wameshindwa kwenda kwenye mahakama ya Fisi sababu ile tribunal ni ngoja kurarua matumbo za watu, sio kusikiza na kupeana uamuzi kulingana na sheria.
Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.
Now, even as we keep an eye on the Kamkunji grounds, I see communication from State House here, and the swearing in of the judges whose names were recently gazetted starts at 7 a.m. So we keep an eye on the Kamkunji grounds and State House, Nairobi. Speaking of State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto is set to present a proposal to the Speaker of the National Assembly on the creation of the office of the official leader of opposition. This even as Azimio la Umoja coalition also indicated plans to present their proposal seeking to create the same office, with a looming battle between the two parties as to whose proposal will gain support of members of parliament. NTV's Melita Oletenges with the details.
The Kenya Kwanza Parliamentary Group meeting has brought to the fore plans by President William Ruto to present a proposal to the National Assembly to amend the constitution and accommodate the office of Leader of Opposition. The Azimio la Umoja coalition is also expected to present a similar proposal.
We will look at all the proposals that come and put together our ideas, plus or minus, whatever proposal we decide to adopt. And then Parliament will make a decision on which proposal, with amendments or without amendments, that they will support.
However, there is dissenting opinion from the Kenya Kwanza Alliance ranks, with some members arguing that the creation of the office will strain government resources. They, however, dispel accusations that it is an incentive to opposition leader Raila Odinga to tone down on his call for mass demonstrations.
We've just had a break of the office of official opposition leader for only 10 years. It is to be there. It has never acted as a handshake. I mean, during Moi era, there was an official opposition leader, although he used to sit in parliament. The only thing we removed this time around, through the 2010 constitution, is not to have them sit in the National Assembly.
Some of the roles and benefits of the office of Leader of Opposition proposed by the Azimio la Umoja coalition include an annual address to Parliament, leeway to nominate persons to constitutional statutory commissions, as well as funding from the exchequer to ensure constant oversight of government. The position of Deputy Leader of Opposition has also been proposed.
I mean, he got about 6.9 million votes. It's only fair to give him some good place to sit, you know, to operate from, to give government checks and stuff like that. And it's not a favor that the government is doing. It is simply, you know, recognizing his effort in this country. And as a perennial complainant, it's very important for you to get an office that is recognized as a, you know, complaint office.
We want a responsible opposition that is capable of being itself taken to account of its actions. And therefore we want an office that is properly established within the law, so that people stop imagining that they can just do whatever it is that you want to do because you're the official opposition leader.
With the two proposals expected to undergo parliament scrutiny, it is expected to be a clash of ideas on the floor of the August House. Melita Oletenges, NTV.
The government is eyeing a fresh 92 billion shilling soft loan from the World Bank to be secured before the close of the current financial year. According to Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njoki Musyoka, this financing will go a long way in supporting the ongoing push for liability management as the government seeks to exit expensive commercial financing for cheaper concessional financing.
During the current IDA 20 cycle, the government has lined up additional DPO of approximately, the World Bank has arranged support for additional 750 million for the current financial year. We have been trying to negotiate that to $1 billion, but Keith has promised that this is what is openly possible right now. And the proposed package under the discussion with the World Bank aims at promoting sustainable resilience and inclusive growth, and that has been said before. And this is going to be very important for us to promote human capital development as a major input to economic management.
The Ministry of Education has announced the scrapping of the boarding function in junior secondary schools. Speaking during the official opening of the Kenya Primary School Head Teachers Conference in Mombasa, Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang emphasized the need for children to be close to their parents. NTV's Fatma Bugu with more.
It will be a big blow for busy parents if the Ministry of Education implements the directive to abolish boarding school for junior secondary.
The first 9 years of our learning between grade 1 and grade 9, the direction that government will be taking is day schooling. And I'm aware this is a critical TOR of our presidential working party.
Kenya has 25% of children in boarding schools, a number that the government says is relatively high compared to other countries.
We need to start socializing ourselves that we need to be with our children. And the only way we shall be with our children is for these children to be in day school environment.
Upande wangu nimeifurahikia manake at least wazazi watakuwa na close supervision ya watoto wao. Mara nyingi wazazi wamejiachilia sana wakiona mwalimu ndio mzazi. Lakini angalau it will be a two-way traffic. Akifika nyumbani ana msaada, akija shule pia ana msaada. Wazazi na walimu washirikiane pamoja ili sote tupate kujua ni vipi watoto hawa wanaweza kutambulika, shida yao ni nini.
President William Ruto has assured Kenyans that his administration will reform the education sector to enhance learning.
We are planning to strategically promote and work with partners to construct low-cost boarding schools in ASAL areas for pastoralist community.
His Excellency the President has directed we recruit 30,000 teachers.
The government will also prioritize the establishment of a national education fund to mobilize grants, bursaries and scholarships to boost learning in both public and private schools. Fatma Bugu, NTV, Mombasa.
3.5 million children will not resume school come January 2023 due to drought that is currently ravaging counties in northern Kenya. These grim statistics were reported by Save the Children, even as Cabinet contributed 17 million shillings from their November salaries to the drought relief kitty. NTV's Bridget Ngana with more.
In 2022, more than 2 million children between the ages of 4 and 17 failed to complete the third term of the academic year, the prolonged drought forcing them out of school. Mandera recorded the highest number of school dropouts at 295,470. Garissa follows with 289,410 dropouts. Wajir at 265,510 dropouts, Turkana with 253,640 dropouts, Marsabit at 107,600 dropouts. Other affected counties are Narok with 83,020 learners dropping out of school. 80,070 learners in West Pokot dropped out of school, with Samburu having 64,818 dropouts. Save the Children has cited lack of school meals, shortage of water, insecurity and poor school infrastructure as some of the reasons that have forced learners out of school. Cabinet has contributed 17 million shillings to the drought relief kitty, which has raised 590 million shillings so far. With members of Cabinet foregoing their November salaries, Kenya needs 17 billion shillings for drought mitigation and relief, even as the National Drought Management Authority forecasts that more than 1.5 million children will not resume school come January next year due to the worsening drought. Bridget Ngana, NTV, Nakuru.
More than 20 candidates from Tigania Central in the county of Meru have not sat for their Form 4 exams. According to these candidates, among these candidates, 10 are from Mutewa Secondary School and have been denied access to exam rooms due to pending school fees and for being expectant. NTV's Rukia Bule has more.
Form 4 candidates continue writing the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education KCSE exams across the country. In day 3, it is emerging that more than 20 candidates in Tigania Central Sub-County in Meru County have failed to sit for their exams. Parents from Mutewa Secondary School have complained that their children have been denied the chance to sit for the national exams due to balance of school fees and teenage pregnancy.
Wakati mtihani ukifika, mwalimu akawafungusha, akawaambia hakuna neno la mtihani. Pesa school fees zilikuwa zaidi ya 10,000.
Hiyo ni hatua gani tamshukulia kwa sababu ndiye ameharibu maisha ya watoto miaka 4 yote nje. Kupata mimba hiyo ajua tuweze sema ni asuliwe kufanya mtihani. Hata kama angejifungua angempelekwa polepole tu afanye mtihani na arundi.
This 19-year-old learner left school in August to give birth. and upon her return, she was barred from sitting for her exams.
Alituambia hatutafanya mtihani kwa sababu hatukuwa tunasoma, tusite tukashika hii shule yake. Saizi nasikia vibaya sana kwa sababu nililose maisha yangu, vision yangu iliisha na sina aim ya kurudi shule tena.
Siku ya mtihani ndio wanatokezea, anampeleka tu aende afanye mtihani. Mimi huwa nauliza wazazi, wakati umekaa na mtoto wako kwa mhula mzima au mwaka mzima hajaenda shule, alafu unampeleka siku ya mtihani, unampeleka afanye mtihani tu apite ama unamsaidia vipi?
Meanwhile, Basic Principal Secretary for Education, Belio Kipsang, has urged stakeholders not to apply too much pressure on candidates. While supervising the distribution of examination materials in Mombasa County, the PS urged parents to encourage their children, reminding the candidates that exams are not the end of the world.
Let's celebrate them for what they are able to do. Let's not compare our children. Let's give them an opportunity to be who they are.
The PS reiterated that the competency-based curriculum is the way forward.
On CBC, they do what we call school-based assessments. And that school-based assessment cumulatively will assist us in assessing the capacities and abilities of our children.
The KCC examinations will run until December 23rd. KCP results will be released before the end of December, while marking of KCC exams will begin on January 2nd, 2023 and be completed on January 20th before schools open on January 23rd. Rukia, Bule, NTV.
The family of slain Kenyan woman Njoki Musyoka have described her as an easygoing person who loved her family and showed no sign of being in a distressed marriage. Njoki's younger brother, Moses Musyoka, described the killing of Njoki and her two daughters in Kentucky in the US of A as shocking, coming barely a month after the couple and the children attended the burial of Njoki's dad in Kirinyaga. NTV's Rose Wangoi has more.
A freshly dug grave with flowers that have started to wither on a heap of soil. Just as the family tries to begin the journey to healing, another tragedy strikes. They're now mourning three other family members. Moses Musyoka, Njoki's brother, said it was difficult for the family on what could have transpired. He says that nothing seemed off with the couple, adding that the murders came as a shock to him and the family.
He was a caring man, and this was the last thing we expected, as in, so it's still shocking. She could speak her mind, as in, if there was anything, we could have known. By now, we could have known that something is going on.
Njoki, her two daughters, Adriana and Brianna, was shot by her husband, Gary Stanton, in cold blood in their Kentucky home on December 2nd. According to the police, Gary died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
They were like the model family. Everybody was saying, wow, I wish my husband was like that. I mean, this is a person who used to share even his password and account details with my sister. So they used to operate together. Everything was open about their relationship. By open, I mean honesty, in terms of honesty.
The shooting of the three comes in the wake of Njoki's birthday last week, where Gary sent her a flowery message to tell her just how much he loved her. Musyoka stated the family was in Kenya last month for their dad's burial. Geoffrey Musyoka had died in Lakewood, Washington in the U.S., and he was buried back home in Kiamaina, Kirinyaga County.
Nothing seemed off, as in the husband greeted us well. He liked children a lot, so he would even take my kids out, as he's taking everyone else's, including my brother's kids. That's who he was. They used to visit the country like every year. He left before. And my sister stayed a bit because we were still continuing with the succession issues about my father. And he'd call daily. He used to call via WhatsApp, so if he doesn't reach my sister, he would call me.
Njoki had worked to become a registered nurse and had recently started work at an adult daycare center in Kentucky. Musyoka added that his late sister and her husband were in the process of starting their healthcare company before their tragic deaths. According to a U.S. police report, the woman and her eldest daughter had multiple gunshot wounds, while the youngest daughter had only one gunshot wound. They're now calling this a domestic murder-suicide, as everyone involved was from the same family.
Yeah, we'll wait for the investigations. They investigate and find out. Maybe they'll go through their phones if there was any issue. so that we can bring closure to that issue, because he never left a note as in saying why I'm doing this, the way normal people like write notes. So far we haven't heard of any note or saying the motive. So that is what is hurting us, and we really don't know why he did it.
Rozongoi, NTV.
Just want that closure, if they can maybe go through their...
A fresh notice of motion to impeach Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza has been launched at the County Assembly. Meanwhile, Mwangaza's allies are accusing Meru Senator Kathuri Murungi, who is also the Senate Deputy Speaker, of being behind the impeachment motion. NTV's Margaret Kimathi has the very latest.
The standoff between members of the Meru County Assembly and Governor Kawira Mwangaza has seen each side maintain a hard stance until recently, when the governor climbed down and made a public apology. It seems like this did not soften the ward representatives, as on Tuesday morning they initiated another impeachment process. The MCAs want her ousted over alleged gross misconduct, appointment of her husband to the county office, and wrongly dismissing county officers.
Inciting the public against the Senator of Meru County, the Honorable Kathuri Murungi, at a public rally held at Rare in Tunene Ward, falsely accusing the Senator of demanding a share of county government appointments, falsely accusing the Senator of antagonizing and creating a wedge between the Governor and the President of the Republic of Kenya, and falsely accusing the Senator of cartelism, blackmail, greed, corruption and intimidation.
They, MCAs, are also accusing Mwangaza of forcefully getting into the county assembly and mobilizing an unlawful riot of assembly members.
Swearing to appoint to our government and actively work with losers of the 2022 county elections instead of the duly elected MCAs to stir wrangles within the assembly.
On November 30th, the courts barred the impeachment motion against Mwangaza. Justice Omai Cherere said the motion did not follow the correct procedure in initiating an ouster bid against her. Meanwhile, Governor Mwangaza's supporters are accusing Meru Senator Kathuri Murungi of instigating the new impeachment motion.
Somebody behind the curtain has been fueling your fight against the governor. We've been asking ourselves, who is this person? I want to thank God that today we have known who has been behind the stalemate in this county of Meru.
Sisi tunajua Kathuri, unataka kuondoa mama ili barabara yako ya 2027 iwe nyepesi na hiyo nyororo. Lakini tunataka tukuambie, Meru is more important and big, more than any one of us.
They have pleaded with President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua to intervene and restore peace in the county of Meru. Margaret Kimathi, NTV.
As Bungoma voters prepare to go to the ballot tomorrow in the senatorial by-election, the poll is threatening to divide Kenya Kwanza affiliate political parties, Ford Kenya and the United Democratic Alliance. Politicians allied to the two parties have been at each other's throats, with Speaker Moses Wetangula and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi insisting the seat should have been zoned in favor of Ford Kenya. NTV's Sydney Chazima reports on the state of affairs in Bungoma as campaigns came to a close yesterday.
Barely 48 hours to Thursday's date with destiny for Bungoma voters and their senatorial candidates, the official campaign period has come to an end. Senator wa Bungoma ni nani? Voters will now have a wide basket from which to choose from, as the race is pitting a total of 11 candidates angling to fill the void left by Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. Kenya Kwanza and Azimio One Kenya alliances will battle it out in Thursday's poll. But under the Kenya Kwanza umbrella, all may not be rosy, with UDA and Ford Kenya at loggerheads. The latter accusing the Big Brother party, UDA, of breaking the code. In the green corner is Ford Kenya's Wafula Wakoli.
Hakuna mtu atatutisha hii Bungoma kama uko na vijana kama Wafula Wakoli. Asante.
In the yellow corner is UDA's Mwambu Mavonga.
Usihangaishwe na mambo mengi.
It is Ford Kenya's feeling that the seat should have been zoned in favor of their candidate.
Musali akasema ANC haitaweka mtu. Wengine wakasema hawaweki mtu. na sisi tumekubaliana hii ni kiti ya Ford Kenya na itabaki ya Ford Kenya.
Sasa kuna wengine ambao walikeuka hayo masikizano, wameenda mbele. Sisi tunasema mtoto akililia wembe mpatie.
Seneta wako ni ODM na unakuja kudanganya watu wa Bungoma ati utaki wapikie UDA, na watu wako wa Sabatia walipikia UDA wako kwa serikali katikati. Wewe unaona watu wa Bungoma ni wajinga? Nyinyi watu wa Bungoma mnaweza kusikiza mheshimiwa Musalia kuliko mimi?
Kama mtu anajidai anajua president, ati anakunywa chai na president, ati anatembea kwa ndege na president, my friend, enda panda na ndege na president, wachana na sisi maskini tujipigie kura.
Interestingly, Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza of UDA has been rallying the masses in favor of Ford Kenya's candidate.
I have been given permission by my president, by my party leader of UDA, to support Wafula Okori for the position of senator for Bungoma County.
Much to the chagrin of his UDA counterparts.
Uamuke kesho asubuhi, upate wheelbarrow mpya iko kwa mlango yako. Tutaambia Mungu asante. Na ukiamuka asubuhi upatane na simba imelala kwa mlango, itakuwa namna gani?
The two Kenya Kwanza parties were expected to reach consensus and field one candidate, but the talks never materialized. Also angling to make a political comeback is former Kandui MP and DAPK parties Wafula Munyinyi, who was once a Ford Kenya stalwart but fell out with Wetangula.
Hakuna mtu anaweza kunitisha mimi. Hakuna mtu anaweza kununua mimi. Governor Lusaka akipewa huyu kijana au mheshimiwa mdogo wa Koli, na yeye ni mtu ya Kenya Kwanza, atamfanyia oversight kweli?
Others in the race to succeed Wetangula are Elias Baraza, Enoch Opara, Julius Masinde, Radon Munoko, Frederick Busoro, Geoffrey Baraza, and Robert Sifuna. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, time to take a look at the news diary and what we're looking forward to. Of course, top on the agenda is the Azimio rally at Kamkunji grounds. President William Ruto, on top of swearing in High Court judges, will also be launching the City Railways project. And members of Parliament will be querying the Transport Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, on transport matters, and economic planning PS will be at the Kisii launch. MPs to also grill Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja on Mama Lucy Hospital's status. Now that is the news diary in terms of the events, the big events that have so far transpired, some of which we captured in our news reports this morning are in the dailies, and we start with the front page of the Daily Nation. And joining me for this newspaper review, I'm joined by none other than our planning editor, Rosaline Obala. Good to see you, my dear. I saw a story you did the other day. I'm trying to recall what it was about. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. I'm a vault. All right, front page of the Daily Nation. Daily Nation has gone big with education matters. Boarding schools shock for parents. You cannot outsource parenting to teachers, PS Belio Kipsang says. Ban starts next year in a move that caught families unawares. The government yesterday slapped a ban on registration of new boarding schools for children in grade 1 to 9 and any form of boarding for junior secondary school. Children from pastoralist communities will, however, be exempt from the new rules. I see here 5%, less than 5% of primary schools have boarding facilities, according to the government. Doing away with boarding schools will make education affordable. Rosaline, how much of a shocker is this? Do you find this story headline worthy?
I think it is. Education matters are always very critical issues in our country. Remember, our country thrives in how best they offer the education sector. But what I think is that it was long overdue. Because you see, we've been having issues of absentee parents, where parents tend to take their children to school at a very tender age, and they're not able to connect with the children. And when the children grow up, they're not also able to know the characters of their children or mold them. So I think by the government deciding that they are doing away with the boarding schools, I think it will also give the parents an opportunity to also sit and learn, also take part in the growth of their children. This issue of boarding school has become a very big issue because remember we were talking about the junior secondary school, and some of the parents had issues that how do you take your young child to school in an institution where we also have teenagers who are actually turning to be adults in the same schools. So by the government deciding to actually have these children remain at home, I think for them it's also supposed to look at the care, the basic nature of that, so that parents actually play that critical role, not just to leave everything to the teachers and the schools.
Okay, I see that there is an exemption for children who come from pastoralist communities, understandably. But what do you say of those parents who perhaps or children who come from single-parent homes? The parent has to work, perhaps does not have money for at-home care, or even for what are they called? I don't call them creche, because creche is for really small children, but they don't have the monies to get somebody else to care for their children. Boarding school could provide a safer environment for some of these children. What do you make of that?
Yeah, you can look at it in two ways, because this is where we've been having the issue of the absentee parents. Yes, there will be the issue of the work requirements that you are supposed to go to work, and at the same time, you have to ensure your children are in are in a safe place. But the question is, will you exempt the care of your children at the expense of looking for a livelihood? Because that is where we find the children is, and that's where we say most of the parents cannot account for the characters of their children or how they grow, or even take time to actually go through their homework and just see what they are doing in school. Most of the parents will always want to start their children to go to boarding school early. Yes, there are some things the children learn, like they're able to be responsible for themselves, wash their clothes, start to be independent at a very young age, but at the expense of what? At the expense of you having that bonding time with the parent to be able to really, really know you and also to play a critical role in your growth.
Okay, so I'm looking at this story for education, right, on page 2. New Year shocker for parents as PS outlaws boarding, ban on boarding schools, comes as a shocker for parents whose children are enrolled in them but have been praised by head teachers. So teachers, it appears, are on board with this. Yes. The real reason we want to do away with boarding school is to make education affordable. But when I flip the page, right, I see there's a story here about drought that has kept more than 2 million children out of school. There's school feeding programs, which I understand in day schools, for instance. But again, and I understand that children from pastoralist communities will be accommodated in boarding schools, but where the parents simply cannot afford both to feed the children at home and to keep them in school, what happens then?
I think at the end of the day, the parents and the teachers have to strike a balance. Because remember, one of the issues of the CBC is that it's more parents-oriented as opposed to the teachers. If you look at the 844, it was more about the schools and the teachers, but the CBC gives the child that opportunity to build their skills at a very tender age. And because of that, they also need the input of the parents at a very tender age. But also, again, we also now intertwine it with the issue of drought. Now, some of the areas that are, we have the biting drought, like in the northeastern and the other areas, now again, that feeding program or boarding schools in those areas come in handy, because those parents who are not able to tend for their kids, or who, the schools are kilometers away where children have to walk long distance to actually go to school, then this is a relief for them, where they can actually have their children in school and also get food to be able to stay in school. But if you look at this statistic of over 3.5 million, it's actually shocking, because January is just next month away, just some days away. You can imagine if already this report is out, how will these kids also be able to benefit from the basics of education, just like every other Kenyan, as per the Constitution requires? Yeah.
All right. So I'll move us along to politics now. And the Standard went with a different headline. Their headline is, Raila's big gamble, risky bet. Today, the opposition chief sets out to pick himself up after the August electoral setback as the government scurries to formalize his role. The planned rallies present as many risks as opportunities and may prove to be another turning point. At the bottom here, I see a picture of the head teachers, primary school head teachers gathered in Mombasa. And at the bottom here, I see, so who killed Top Cohen after 3 years of uncertainty over her fate. The widow of murdered Dutch tycoon Top Cohen has been freed as DPP Haji seeks an inquest. The question remains, who killed him? But I'll stick with the top headline there.
Yes, yeah.
And that is Raila's big gamble. Do you agree? And we'll get into the whole role of the opposition leader and the various bills that are being proposed around that. But just let's start with what is planned for today at Kamkunji. Raila Odinga has sought to make the distinction between picketing and demonstrations and said this is a consultative forum. Where there will be an exchange of opinion. And he's also pledged to reveal how he claims the presidential election was stolen from him. Do you agree that this Kamkunji event, let me call it that, is a big gamble for Raila?
I think this is a big gamble for Raila. But again, being a Raila is very difficult. It's not just for any person. So for me, I think this is either a make or break for Raila, because yes, he talks about a consultative forum. It will, the first time they talked about it as the People's Assembly. This is not the first time Raila is having the People's Assemblies. So it also depends with how the people will turn up, if they do. Some of the issues that will be canvassed, and if it will shape the national discourse going forward. Because it will also be keeping the Kenya Kwanza administration in check, because they'll be busy either turning fires after today's meeting, or maybe it will just be a stalemate, like it doesn't take off like they expect to take off. But remember, since the 2022 elections, this is the first time that I think Raila is going back to the people after the flopped BBI process that they did before the elections. So depending on how they package and message whatever they are going to deliver, and how they conduct these elections, this assembly meeting going forward, it will set the stage for a national discourse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you agree that it could swing either way, and it depends on the turnout, as I understand you to say. This is how. So the Standard has called it a big gamble. The Star says it is a litmus test for Raila as anti-Ruto rallies begin. ODM leader Raila Odinga in an earlier picture here. There has been prior to this Kamkunji event, we saw some disgruntlement within the ranks of Azimio. KANU initially distanced itself. But yesterday, Jubilee also was thought not to have any intention of taking part in this event. But yesterday, when I watched the press, was it yesterday or the day before? I think, the day before. Yes. When I watched Raila Odinga seeking to make that distinction of this will be a peaceful event. Yes. I saw Jeremiah Kioni flanking him. I saw David Morade also saying that Ruto's administration is a dictatorial one. Do you think this distinction he made of between a demonstration or mano a mano and consultative forum made all the difference for him?
I think it did, but also look at where Raila is, the standpoint of Raila. Remember, this was a coalition that knew they were going to win the presidency. They are still healing from the shock of not winning the presidency. And then here is a case where we have a country that is also having so many problems that they are dealing with, the high cost of living. We have the issues of the current administration trying to rewrite what they think are the wrongs of the former administration, and actually attributing some to the handshake between Raila and former President Uhuru Kenyatta. So for them, they stand in a position where they want to tell Kenyans, we are your saviors. We are coming in to hold this government to account on the issues that they said. But at the same time, IBC has declared results. The Supreme Court upheld those results. But from where we sit, we don't think that that was the position. And we need to tell Kenyans the truth of what really transpired, so that they either whip emotions, or maybe Kenyans say, we have moved on, let us move on as a country and wait for the next election. So for Raila, it's a litmus test, because he has to go back and reassemble his team and tell his team, this is a team that I want to move forward. And I think that is what is upsetting even the Kenya Kwanza administration. And you see now they're actually talking about creating a position of the leader of opposition, which it's a tall order from where I sit. I'm not a legal person, but I'm sure if you engage the legal experts, they will tell you the drafters of the Constitution ring-fenced some of these issues to ensure that we don't have rogue politicians, we don't have a rogue government that will always wake up at the end of the day under the flames of what they want, will always want to come up with the laws that actually address their own interests. So because of that, I think whatever even the conversation you're talking about, that office of the leader of opposition is a way to manage Raila so that he can shift away from these people's assemblies and give the Kenya Kwanza an opportunity to actually manage the government.
All right, and Wisoki Kithure Kindiki speaking yesterday, promising to provide them with security, but also cautioning against the breaking of the law. Yeah. This is the editorial cartoon on the Daily Nation. This is page 16, and they have a banner at the back there. Yes. Kamkunji Consultative, quote-unquote, bean spilling meeting. I see Kalonzo Musyoka there, Junet Mohammed, James Orengo, Martha Karua, and who is this right at the front? I can't make it out. Which one? Just in front of Martha Karua? Okay, well, as we consult, because this is all about consultation, as we consult, you can also see that there's a ballot box there, and he's kicked it over, and there are the spilled beans. Yes. All right, Rosaline, now if we look at what you made reference to just a few moments before, and that is with regard to the attempts to, as you put it, manage Raila Odinga with the office of the leader of the official opposition. And I can't find it. Which page was it on the Daily Nation? I know we carried a report just before. Oh yes, Ruto's sweet, that's page 7, Ruto's sweetheart deal to entice MPs. It is page 7. Page 7, yes. There we go. And so the president gives nod to proposal to set up office of the leader of the opposition, entrench CDF, and end 2/3 gender rule row. And handshake, there's a question there. MPs question Ruto backing for office, even as MPs backed the bill. The nation has learned that some MPs expressed concern whether the president was trying to bring another quote-unquote handshake through the back door, through the introduction of the official opposition leader office. And I see a quote here. Some MPs asked the president why he is supporting creation of a powerful office of opposition leader. Said an MP who attended the meeting. President Ruto, however, told them that the creation of the office will work in favor of the executive, since the opposition will now have a defined structure on how they operate and will now be reminded to operate within the law. What do you make of this?
You know, they always say that even politicians who differ in opinions, when it comes to things that touch on their interests, they always unite. And I think this is one of the moves by the Kenya Kwanza administration that I think will get the backing from across the aisle. Remember when we talk about the issues of CDF, remember the other day the MPs actually ganged up and they said we are not going to go on long recess. Actually, we are going to paralyze activities in this house until we get our money, the CDF money. And that is why they were not even able to pass some of the names of the people proposed to sit in the constituency committees, because they wanted that assurance from government. And what the president has done is to dangle a carrot, and to dangle it to the MPs, and also to rope in the MPs from Azimio, is to tell them we are actually going to support the proposal to have the official leader of opposition. Because for them to actually anchor the CDF in the constitution, they have to garner 2/3 in both houses. Now, both sides, none will actually garner the 231 in the National Assembly and 45 in the Senate. So for that, you give the MPs what they want, and you also give them what will actually bring them together to speak in one. We've always seen when it comes to issues CDF, when it comes to issues affirmative action. Now we are having the conversation about the Senate Oversight Fund, which I'm actually asking where will it be anchored, because I foresee somebody else again moving to court to question how that money will actually be used, because senators are supposed to oversight, not to actually implement also projects. So you look at all this and you find why the president is dishing this sweetener so that all the MPs can actually agree with him on anything that he wants to do, so that when these things come, they'll actually pass. And I'm sure under the radar, maybe there are also some issues that his administration is going to bring. We are yet to see the omnibus bill that the MPs are supposed to discuss tomorrow.
At the special sitting.
At the special sitting. And we always say that the devil is in the details. So actually, when we see that bill, you will actually be surprised. Maybe some of the things that the Kenya Kwanza administration wants to pass through are actually going to be brought alongside what interests the MPs, so that they can actually be there and give the government what they want, and they also get what they want.
All right, thank you very much. I will conclude this press review there, but of course I would be remiss if I didn't just show you what is on the front page of the Business Daily and Taifa Leo. World Bank falls Uhuru's growth for helping the rich. World Bank says Kenya's growth has stopped being pro-poor. Gap between the rich and the poor unchanged since 2015. This report by John Mutua. Economic policies pursued in the latter years of President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration helped benefit wealthy Kenyans the most, the World Bank disclosed yesterday. So do purchase your copy of the Business Daily to get a sense of that. And Taifa Leo, their top story is waliokosa minofu ya Ruto wateta. Vita baridi vimeibuka ndani ya muungano wa Kenya Kwanza baina ya marafiki wapya wa Rais William Ruto na wale wa zamani. Baadhi ya marafiki wa zamani wa rais wananungunika kuachwa katika teuzi mbalimbali zinazofanywa na kiongozi wa taifa serikalini, wakidai amekuwa akiwatunuku viti waliotekeleza majukumu muhimu katika safari yake ya ikulu. All right, so that is ukurasa wa pili of the Taifa Leo. Up here I see they say wanasiasa walioungana na rais walalama anatunza walioungana naye baadaye huku akipuuza wale wa zamani. So essentially, there's some tension, right, in Kenya Kwanza over those who supported his bid later and those who claim to have stood with him from the very start. Yes. All right, we take a break. We'll be back with more on AM Live on the other side.